never seen.
Yo, what's up guys? Bill here, Classic Rock and Metal Review. Time for another version called Ultimate Albums or Ultimate Album Version, Episode 2. This one for Ozzy Osbourne's Blizzard of Oz. Another album that I think could be better. And I just mean better based on material that was available to the band at the time. So I don't use live stuff. I don't use stuff from other eras. B-sides, outtakes, things like that I think could have been on this album and weren't. So this is where I basically tweak a classic album and I think make it better. At least give you an alternative version of it. And this is the second album I ever owned, Blizzard of Oz. So I'm very familiar with it. Always thought of it as an album with an awesome side one. A good, but noticeably not as good as the first, side two. Definite come down on side two. All right, so things to rectify with this one. It's front loaded with the best songs. You know, finishes on the downslide. I always thought the best albums of all time, when you take them off, you almost can't wait to hear them again. And Blizzard of Oz was not that way because side two was just like so much weaker than the side one. And of course you had Mr. Crowley on side two. That would be your standout there. So changes, added one B-side, added one non-album track, but I only used one alternate mix in place of a standard. Removed one song entirely. I just think it was killing the flow. So away you go. Now the running order, as per usual, I changed it up, which accomplishes two things. It spreads the huge hits out a little bit. Instead of them being 4 to the first 5 songs, now they're a little more spread to side 2. And I think it's a heavier album, more rockin' experience, and nothing wrong with hearing Randy Rhoads rock. And of course the great Oz and Blizzard of Oz, the whole band kills it, you know. So first thing I do, get the best main source available, which would be the early press, Japan made for US. Arguable, but a lot of people will go with this one. So I tracked this down. Actually came across it a few months ago in a record store. It was the only one they had. And then also came across another one not too long after that. Might have been part of that big Sabbath Ozzy package I got a little while ago. Also, there's a 1995 remaster out there people think are just as good as this. I don't have that one. So just using my Japan early press as my base for building my own version of Blizzard of Oz. So I'll be dropping a playlist. It's not music I upload. I just snag it off other people. So I'm putting that together for you. There's a link in the description. Just click on over, listen to what I'm putting together. Just going to talk my way through what I did here. Then you can go listen all you want. So I used 7 songs from the regular CD. So not a whole crazy difference here. The one bootleg alternate mix, one bootleg version of a B-side. And believe it or not, I'm going to get in this a little bit because this is really interesting. And man, I wish I had this CD. You guys would lose your shit. Had a fan-made Mr. Crowley CD single. And I'm not talking the Mr. Crowley live EP. This guy did some really decent work putting together his own CD single. Like I said, we'll go over that coming up. And man, I don't have the CD to show you, but his artwork was so spot on. I really thought it was a legit CBS disc, you know, Jet Records, whatever. And you know, he sold it as a Japan CD, and I wasn't really sure, but I bought it anyway, and I ended up selling it. Bought it for like $80 or $90. I sold it for $100. And I did burn it into my iTunes, so I can show you what was up with that. Because I ended up using one of those versions on here. Let me just tell you this quickly about that CD single, whatever you might have called it. This was 10 or 12 years ago on eBay. He also was selling a So Tired, a version of that EP, or, you know, maxi single, whatever. It was another, looked like a CBS Jet product. And man, I scrutinized those pictures as best I could. The guy really went through the trouble. Now this is Blizzard of Oz, but everything on the side of the CD looked exact. Same color, same font. The artwork was perfect. I mean, it was the same gloss as the cover on here when you pull this out and everything. It just said I think it just said Mr. Crowley EP on the side or Mr. Crowley single. I forget what it said on the side because I don't have it obviously anymore to show you. It was so crazy spot on. that even the font on the disc itself looked exactly like this. I mean, exactly. Now, I really kind of wasn't sure. I was kind of like, this is kind of bullshit. How's this guy got the only one of these I ever saw? But what ended up happening was, right before I sold it, I guess I burned it in iTunes. Must have been maybe drinking one of these, and my hand was a little moist. And when I popped it out of the player, when I touched the disc, the ink ran a little bit. And that was the only giveaway to this guy's otherwise meticulous work. What you got on there was Mr. Crowley radio edit. All right, the regular version, it was 3 minutes, 57 seconds. There was basically no keyboard intro. That was, and then it faded out, I think, a little earlier too. But the song just started out with Mr. Crowley, no organ keyboard intro at all. Then there was the full version, 5 minutes, 2 seconds of Mr. Crowley. Then you had No Bone Movies radio edit, 3 minutes and 7 seconds. I couldn't even tell you what was different with that one. Just chopped up to where it just, everything came in quicker and started quicker. Okay, the singing was going on 10 seconds into the song. There was no real build up, and faded quicker, I think. All stuff you probably do at home, you know, with software on your editing software. Then there was a No Bone Movies full version. Okay, 3 minutes, 53 seconds. Now here's something I ended up using for this version of Blizzard. And I always thought it was pretty pointless. Until now. A You Said It All studio mix. All right, which is pretty much the reason I was buying this thing back in the day. 4 minutes and 8 seconds. So it was the same running time as the full version. But what he did was completely omit the fade in to where the first thing you hear is the music itself. And it's kind of a little louder than the regular version. And then there would be this patch that you could hear, that where he patched it. So his version starts with no crowd, and then where the patch happens, you hear the crowd for like a split second, and then it goes into the regular version. And what he did at the end was, on the last verse, he like repeated the last verse, and while Ozzy's singing it and gets into the chorus, it fades out. So you don't have that musical fade out and the crowd fade out at the end. So that's how it ends up being the same time, even though he cuts the intro, is that he repeats the last verse and then fades that out too. So it ends up being 4 minutes and 8 seconds, basically the same as the EP version. So he almost did a perfect patch job. And since it does sound like a studio mix, for the most part, other than that one little glitch, I went with that one on this Blizzard of Oz. So, like I said, just needed the money. I wish I would have kept that thing just to show you guys. It was really awesome. And I've never seen anything like it before or since. And same can be said for that So Tired CD single also. So, original album, Die Hards, just, I kept things fairly faithful for you guys. So, let's just see what you think. My version of Blizzard starts with I Don't Know, the original version. No need to mess with a good thing there. Same with Crazy Train. I'm going to keep the same intro, both of the same songs from the regular album. All right. Next up, you can say goodbye to Goodbye to Romance. It's been replaced by that fan mix, studio mix of You Said It All, which is really pretty cool. That fades out into D, and D into Suicide Solution. So, for the most part, the regular album, but You Said It All has replaced Goodbye to Romance, and it just sounds, I just like that song better. Why not put it in there? And having that almost completely studio mix, kind of cool. You know, finally have a use for that song. You know, it was the reason I bought it, and kind of was right away, was like, man, this is bullshit. This guy just did this himself. But it does kind of sound cool, and it is different. I've heard the other version 100 times, so it's kind of cool to find a home for that fake studio mix of You Said It All. So the other thing I did tweak a little bit, or consider, I tried using D after Suicide Solution. It kind of works pretty good. It works really good as an intro to Revelation. But I just kind of miss it in front of Suicide Solution. So I just left it there. So that's your side one. Track 6, or it would be side 2 if you had an album, is Revelation Mother Earth. Instead of using Mr. Crowley here, you know, your last monster song on this album, because you've already used I Don't Know, Crazy Train, and Suicide. I'm going to go with Revelation. Now, you know what? Last time we talked about this song, pretty down on it, as far as it's always been underwhelming to me. Never really knew anyone that even really loved it either. And always with Steal Away, it's kind of a drag. It's like you hear the one, you know what you're in for the next 10 minutes as soon as Revelation starts. But I've just done so much bootleg listening in the last 10 or 12 years that I don't think I've heard the studio album, The studio version of that song, I think is really, really good. All those acoustics and piano and things, they're just they come across so much better on the record than they do live. Just my opinion, but I'm sticking with it. I've heard that song live 50 times the last 10 years, various Ozzy bootleg concerts and such, and haven't heard the studio album until recently, for a long time. And I really kind of dig it. I have to tell you, I think I was wrong about that song a little bit. It's not awesome. It's not one of the best on the album, but I do like it a lot. So it's going to be the next song number 6. I would have loved to have separated Steal Away the Night. After all these damn times we've heard these two songs back to back. But it just can't be done. You have those sound effects at the very end of the one, and they're also in the beginning of the next. So I'm just going to have to keep them together. Next up, No Bone Movies. And this one, we're going to use an alternate mix from, I have it anyway on this, Chelmsford Complete from 1980. So it's an audience bootleg, but you got some bonus tracks on there that were pretty awesome. No Bone Movies and Steal Away the Night. Just sort of preliminary mixes, rough mixes, I guess you'd say. The No Bone Movies sounds like the same version that made the album, or maybe not. Ozzy does sound like he's saying a few different words here and there, towards the end, especially when he's just they're kind of goofing off towards the end. Sounds a little different. You got that chick moaning and groaning. So that's the version I used here, just to change it up a little bit. Basically the same song. So track number 8 is No Bone Movies alternate mix. Now, here's where we throw in You Looking at Me, Looking at You. Now, you got a version as a bonus track on that Blizzard of Oz from, 2011, I think. That one just starts right out with the song, hits the snare and goes in. And I got this bootleg a few months ago, flipping the other side. It has a bunch of these B-sides and Mr. Crowley EP on here. But the very first version of You Looking at Me, Looking at You that's on here, the very first song, is actually a vinyl rip from the original 7-inch B-side. And it's kind of cool because it starts out like a lot of Blizzard of Oz does, or half the songs do, with the 4 count. And it just really sounds cool. And it sounds a little beefier. It does sound like vinyl. So it does sound a little different than that clean bonus track we got on Ozzy's version of Blizzard of Oz. And kind of like this version a little better. I like that you get a few extra seconds in the beginning. So that's the version we use of that B-side. This album ends with Mr. Crowley, the original from Blizzard of Oz. So as you can see, not a whole lot of outtakes and things from me. You said it all, that fan-made quote-unquote studio mix, that No Bone Movies alternate mix, and You Looking at You 7-inch vinyl rip. So only 3 out of these 10 songs are not from the original Blizzard of Oz CD from Jet Records. So ending with Mr. Crowley. Now, I'll tell you, this album just kind of wins going away. All right, it's not something you're no longer going to take this off and be like, all right, I'm good with that for a while. You're actually probably going to want to play this again pretty soon, and that's what I think best albums do, So having that, at least one of the 4 stalwarts from this album at the very end, I think, really kind of puts a punctuation, exclamation mark rather, on the end of this record, No longer those 4 best out of the first 5 songs. So a legit awesome tune anchors the backside of the album. So there you go, guys. That's Ultimate Album Version, Episode 2, Ozzy Osbourne's Blizzard of Oz. The playlist for what I just told you about is in the description. Click on over. They're not songs I upload myself. I'm just grabbing them from other people. I throw them in a playlist for you. Coming up, if you dig these episodes, we already did Born Again. Just reposted a new episode talking about that at the same time as this one. Coming up, we'll tackle Sabotage. No extras, but I changed the play order, and that really did some magic for me anyway. Always thought that one was front loaded with songs. Eat a Peach. I always bothered by all that live stuff on here. I kind of use a couple of other songs that were available to the band from a year or two earlier, plug them in here, ditch the live stuff, make my own version of Eat a Peach. It's now a complete studio-only album. And then last but not least, we will get to Bark at the Moon using rough mixes, maybe an outtake or two, whatever needs to be done here to help the situation with Ozzy's Bark at the Moon. I think I did a better job than what the original album was. You can be the judge. Everyone, have a good rest of your day. Keep on listening to Ozzy, Sabbath, The Almonds, and hope you're having a good summer. Everyone, take care.